Right, hello, and today we're going to be starting a short series. As you can tell, this is not the usual layout. I'm going to be seeing if my mum can learn Yu-Gi-Oh! So, what's going to happen is over the next 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to be teaching her a deck, one per video, out of 2 decks, and then we'll play open-handed, so she can learn the game, and if you're new, you can learn how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works, and then we'll try one more at how you'd actually play if you're playing in locals or on a tournament, and then potentially she'll work her way up to playing Hobby League. So, the first deck we're going to look is Grandma Jew Gizmex. This is mostly a machine deck, but I'll go through bits as we go through the list. So, first up is the 3 Grand Marju. This is kind of your boss monster, which is slightly unusual because it's a main deck these days, but this effect is when you have it has attack and defense is equal to the number of banished cards times 400. Gizmek is a banishing itself deck, not quite like Malice or some of the more modern ones, but I'll explain the difference in a minute. But it's a level 3, so you can just normal summon it out as well, so no tributing or anything. It ends up quite large attack defense and hopefully wins you the game. This is the main win con in the deck. We then have the main Gizmek core. We have 3 Gizmek Orochi, I can't read it, Servotron Sky Slasher. This is the main Gizmek monster. This effect is a quick effect, so you can do it on your opponent's turn. Banish 8 from top of deck, face down. This is unique to Gizmex as far as I'm aware of the way they interact with face down. To special summon itself. Its other effect, but it can't be used the turn it's summoned, is you can banish 3 from extra deck to destroy a monster. So this is one of the main ways we get cards banished for Grand Marju. Next, we have Gizmek Makami, the Ferocious Fang Fortress. This is the other really important monster in the deck for the Gizmex, because this works really well with Orochi. So this one, if you have 6 or more banished cards, it can normal itself without tributing. It's a level 6, so it would normally need 1 monster to tribute summon, but its effect bypasses that if you've got cards banished predominantly off Orochi. You can then discard a card or a monster to add a monster whose attack equals its own defense from deck. This is the other effect all Gizmex have, is their attack and defense are all the same and they're all machines. So while there might be other cards that could feed into that, it mostly in this deck will refer to itself or the rest of the archetype. And if it's destroyed, it shuffles back 6 banished cards to the deck. So you end up low on resources, this gets destroyed, and you can shuffle back cards. This doesn't have to be under your opponent's effect, so you can destroy it yourself, and I'll show you how this deck can do that in a bit. We have Arakami, the Hailbringer Hog. So if you control a Gizmek, because that's basically how it's working in this deck, you can special summon it from hand, and if it's in the graveyard, you banish to target basically another Gizmek to send 1 from deck to graveyard with a level lower than the one you've targeted gain its attack, boost its attack by 100 times the level of the monster. So you're using this to just give your monsters a bit more power over your opponents. Then we run, so that's the 3-offs. Most of these now will go be 2-offs. There is Gizmek Uka, the Festive Fox. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the last one because I've never quite managed to work it out. This is a burn card, and with an interesting card with modern matchups, it actually kind of works. So, every time your opponent normal or special summons a monster, it does 300 damage. It is over, so you would normally need to tribute summon this because of its level. But if you special summon a monster directly from deck, or your opponent does, this special summons out. Then you target your monster, not your monster, the monster your opponent summoned, or any on their board, and you can summon out one with the same attribute, so in the top corner, the earth, the water, wind, dark, fire. So, against another earth, you can summon out a second one, it's now 600 damage a summon, because it stacks. Or, it's a good way against getting certain of the other ones out and into rotation. We have Inaba, the Hopping Hare of Yugioh. So if this is normal summoned, you can special summon a Gizmek from hand in defense position. This is another banish from graveyard. This one you target one of the Gizmeks in this case, and you can only declare attacks with that monster, but its attack and defense is the combined attack of all the machine monsters you currently control, which fulfills the Gizmek requirement. So suddenly, it turns like your Orochi or your Ferocious Fang Fortress into potentially quite a bit of damage to your opponent. But you can only attack with the one you've targeted. Then we have Taniguku, the Mobile Intellect, which is, if it's normal or specialed, you take one of your Gizmeks and put it to top of, so from anywhere in your deck to top of deck. This is so you can guarantee the draw you want. So if I'm suddenly going, I could really do with a Fanged Fortress, and I've got one in deck, I can put him on top. He also has a banish from graveyard effect to special summon and defense another Gizmek that's in the graveyard, so it's another free special summon. Now we have 2 of Naganaki, the Sunrise Signaler. This is a 2-off again. You can tribute a machine monster, well, a Gizmek in this case, to special summon another one from deck with a lower level than the one you tribute. Sometimes it's worth using this just to get the level 1 in play. And if you banish this from graveyard, you can add a face down banished Gizmek monster. And you can do both in one turn. You can only use each effect once per turn. This is useful because when you're banishing face down, sometimes the piece you need gets multiple copies banished, so it just keeps stuff. 2 one-off monsters. We've got Kaku, the Supreme Shining Sky Stag. This one is a bit harder to play against some modern decks because to special summon it, you need there has to be a monster in the extra monster zone. I can do it off my own deck, but really you're wanting to try and do it off your opponent's. Its other effect, once per turn, you can target to equip a monster from the extra monster zone, so it would sit in your spell and trap zone, and if this destroys the monster in battle, you summon the one you've equipped to it, and then you can use that in the battle phase. So you could hit someone with their own monster, in theory. The other one-off, I will comment, ideally these to be played at 2, but I've only got 1 copy, so it's being played at 1 for now. But the other one is Gizmek the Dreaded Deluge Dragon. This special summons itself out if your opponent has 2 or more extra deck monsters on the field. You can pay 1500 life points to destroy all of your destroy all monsters on the field that were special summoned from the extra deck, so it would wipe any of your own out. But in theory, you're summoning this early enough, you don't have any. And you can also attack only with 1 monster this turn. This is 2950, so depending on what your board is, that might be the one you want to attack with. If this is destroyed by your opponent's effect, you target banish from your opponent's graveyard a monster and gain the attack of that monster as life. So while it does remove life, if it doesn't get to do that, or even if it does, you can still gain life. This is a time card because going second with not much time, if I summon this and they pop it, I gain life, time runs out, I've won on life gain. Then the last one of this bit is 2 of the Sacred Scrolls of the Gizmek legend. This is the field spell, which go in like that, so for you. So during the main phase, you excavate the top 3, which means you take the top 3 off top deck, reveal them, and you can add basically a Gizmek from those, if there's one in there, to your hand. The others go face down banished. If there isn't any, all 3 get face down banished. So between this and Orochi, this is the 2 in-engine ways of making Grand Marju work. The other effect of this, and it's nice to have a D10 like this. Every time you summon a Gizmek, it gains 1 counter. When it gets to 10, neither play can activate the effects of monsters which do not fulfill the attack and defense being equal, which for a lot of decks just stops them from playing. It's like a skill drain, or if you've been playing around long enough, Dynamorphia Extra, but as a field spell. That's the main engine. The rest I'm going to show you is now support. So, okay, I didn't know what order these were in. So, Call by the Grave, quick play spell. So, ideally going first, you're setting this. You use it to target an opponent's monster in your graveyard, their graveyard, to banish, and until the end of the next turn, they can't activate the effects of that monster with anything with the same original name, even if it's on the field already. You can play this going second, and sometimes it is worth just to play it just straight away, but going first, it's always worth setting because it's an interruption. Next up, actually I've got this. No, this is fine. Harvey's Feather Duster. So both of these are one-offs because they're limited in the ban list. This is spell and trap removal, so it does field spell and your entire opponent's back row. It's nice because against back row heavy decks like Odeon, you remove that and they can't play. It's also nice of getting. It's also really good against Blue Eyes because you can get rid of True Light. It's got a mandatory effect to pop the board. One Terraforming, again, this is a one-off because of the ban list. This searches out the field spell and adds it to your hand. You might see sometimes 1 Terraforming, 1 field spell, but I like 2 for consistency. 1 Monster Reborn, again, ban list, lets you special summon a monster on your turn from either graveyard, So so sometimes it's not worth summoning your own monsters. Sometimes you see something really useful in your opponents. You summon that, they suddenly lose part of their combo, so then they can't play. 3 Pots of Desires. This is another useful card for Grand Magi specifically. You banish 10 cards from the top of your deck face down, so it's still in theme with the rest of the deck, and then you draw 2 cards, but these are once per turn effects. So you play 1, banish 10, draw 2, so you go +1 with your draw. Then we have 3 Limiter Removal. This is a quick play spell, so you can use it on your opponent's turn. It doubles the attack of all machine monsters you control until the end of the turn. The caveat being, in the end phase, they are destroyed. This is how you get Ferocious Fang Fortress off of your side of the field to shuffle back because it gets destroyed. It's good going if you're attacking, going second, or it's good to set. Your opponent attacks into you, you go limiter removal. Suddenly, hopefully, you've got a larger monster and they're the ones taking the damage. You just yeah, 3 Raigeki. So this deck runs a lot of board breakers for its support, so you won't see hand traps. So the idea is your opponent goes first, you break their board and then do damage. Raigeki destroys all your opponent's monsters on the field. Non-targeting, which is important because sometimes they'll have monsters that say cannot be targeted. 2 Lightning Storms. They're semi-limited because of the ban list. It's kind of like a Raigeki. If you control no face-up cards, so it's a good drawing going second, you can either choose to destroy all attack monsters your opponent controls, or you can destroy all spells and traps your opponent controls, and it's a once per turn. So that's useful, because you get a pick. So sometimes you want to destroy the monsters, sometimes the back row. So you can go Lightning Storm, Raigeki, and just completely leave them with nothing on the field. Then we've got Forbidden Droplet, which is a quick play. If you send any number of cards from hand or field to the graveyard, and for that number you negate that number of up to that number of effects for that turn until the end of the turn, but their attack is also halved for turn, and they cannot respond to this with the same original type. So if I send a monster, spell and a trap, they can't use any cards to respond because I've used each one of those types, and they're once per turn effect. Then the other board breaker, which you have, is Dark Ruler No More. You have to be careful with the one, so it's a negate all face-up monsters your opponent controls, and they can't respond, and neither player can activate monster effects in response to this, so you can't start a chain with this. The caveat being, your opponent takes no damage for the rest of the turn, so you can still battle to break their board, and you can still do stuff to break their board, but they are not taking damage, so you have to think about that one. Play 1 Nemesis Corridor. This is a thunder monster that you can target a face-up banished monster, so any of the ones that banish themselves from graveyard. To shuffle them back to deck, this then special summons itself out. This then can be tributed to as a fusion summon for an next deck monster, which I'll show you in a minute. Then we have, again, a one-off card because of ban list. This one, Corridor, you can play more. Dimension Shifter, just been hit. You never summon this monster. Quick effect, if you have no cards in your graveyard, you send this card from hand to graveyard until the end of the next turn. any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. Well, I've said this deck wants to banish face down, so why am I running it? Going second, you break their graveyard instead of their, as well as their board. More things go into the graveyard, spells and traps and monsters, the less ability they have to make a board or want to make a board because they don't want to lose resources, and some decks like to have recursion from the graveyard. It stops that. And you just make a weaker board yourself under it, but you kind of accept that. Then we've got Arch Nemesis Protoss. Cannot be normal summoned or set. The way you special summon it is to banish 3 monsters with different attributes from your graveyard and or face up on the field. This cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is really crucial. You declare a monster attribute from the field and you destroy all monsters of that type. So if you declare Dark, which it is, it will not be destroyed by its own effect. And until the end of the next turn, they can't special summon them either. So you get locked out of playing the deck just from this one monster. It's a board breaker. 1 Cyber Dragon. This can be played at 3, but there are reasons I'm playing it at 1. If your opponent only controls a monster, you special summon this card from hand. It's a good going second. It's a free special summon, and in the extra deck I run something I can contact fuse into it. I'll explain that in a minute. 2 Molchami through a loss. I've only got 2, which is why I've got 2. These are hand traps. There's no point in summoning them in this deck. So if you control no cards, you discard, and then each time your opponent special summons from the deck or extra deck, you draw a card. During the end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than the number of cards your opponent controls plus 6, you randomly shuffle until you reach down to that deck size. The other caveat is you can only activate 1 of the Molchami in the turn you do one. So there's a couple of others which I don't own, but I can basically double Furloughs, so then I'm drawing 2 for every one of those summons. Just adds more cards to hand. Then the last card in the main deck, Carnot the Eternal Machine. Cannot be normal summoned or set. But this is telling with the age of the card. Can only be special summoned from hand or graveyard during a duel in which your opponent has activated a monster effect. This dates back to when some of them you had probably more normal monster decks going around, so you didn't have as many effect monsters. It's a once per turn special summon. If your opponent activates a monster effect, apart from damage step, they activate effect, you go, cool, this now gains 1000 attack permanently, well, until it's removed from field, but effectively permanently. And if it is sent to graveyard, which is different to destruction, it shuffles itself back into deck. I'll shuffle this in a minute, but that's the
just
main
before we
deck.
do a few questions.
Yeah.
So how do you read a card? So you mentioned obviously the names at the top.
Yeah.
There's the attack and defense down at the bottom, I can see.
Yeah.
So what do the circles along the top mean?
So the circles on the top, these are levels. So each monster has a level. It's directly corresponded. So 2 is a level 2. It goes up to level 12. Level 1 to 4, you can just summon. 5 to 6, you tribute 1 monster, which means, say I had this on the board, but I wanted to summon out Gizmek. I'd have to tribute him to get him out. 7 or 8, it's 2 monsters on the field. The Egyptian gods, and maybe 1 or 2 others, but I can only think of the Egyptian gods right now, are level 12s that require 3 tributes, but that's specifically in their text. Their text will tell you specific things, and I'll show you what the equivalents are in extra deck, because not all of them are technically levels. But so it just tells you summoning, basic summoning conditions. Or with this, if I tribute to level 6, because it says lower, sorry, no, not that one. One of the Gizmeks that does that. You no, it is this one. You now, well, I've tributed to level 6. I can only go 5 or lower. Or if I've done a level 2, I can only go for the Hopping Hare because that's the only level 1 in the deck. So it's just a way of making sure you can't just flood the board and just go, I've got all these monsters out. If they have alternate summoning conditions or locks, it will be in their text. The extra deck. Don't need most of this. It's just Orochi fodder for the Banish 3. They can be anything you want out of the 15. But yeah, that's now in a minute. There's 5 cards you have to think about in this deck. 1, IP Masquerena. Dark Cybers Link. Links have a number in the bottom. This tells you how many material, the monsters they need to summon. This only requires 2 non-linked monsters, so all monsters from your deck will make this. This is where your EMC comes into play. Link monsters, when they're first summoned, can only be summoned to the extra monster zone. And then they can only be summoned to where arrows point to. So each one has an arrow. They all have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they've all got basically a little grid around them. And where it's red, you can summon a link monster. Now, if both are full and I have an arrow pointing forwards, you can still summon your link monster there because it is an extended zone, effectively. This you use on your opponent's main phase as a quick effect. You tag out, you link summon with this and another monster, go to graveyard, you make another link monster, and that's on that cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effects. The next link monster, it's easy to make links in this, is SP Little Knight. If this is link summoned using an extra deck monster as material, you can target one of your a card on the field or in either graveyard to banish. But then you can, the caveat that people forget, you cannot attack directly that turn. So if there's no monsters, you can't attack. As a quick effect, when your opponent activates a card or effect, you target 2 face-up monsters on the field to banish them to end phase. It can target itself, but it doesn't have to. If I've got another monster on the field, I can remove that as well. So that's just banish control, which is useful for battling. Then we have Nightmare Phoenix. All this needs is 2 monsters with different names. Dead easy to make. You discard a card, target a spell trap your opponent controls to destroy it. It does have co-linked effects, but I won't worry about that because in this deck you very rarely make it co-linked. But all that means is, so I have, well, if you did that, because their arrows are pointing, they're co-linked. There is ways to make U shapes and V shapes, but not in this deck. So it's just nice destruction, that one. Last 2. Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. So if you remember Cyber Dragon, this is why I run Cyber Dragon at 1. This needs Cyber Dragon plus 1 or more machine monsters to contact fuse. So fusions normally require a fusion spell, like polymerization, to make. This doesn't. As long as you've got the material on board, you can just make it. And this, but this you can from either field. So if you've got machines on your side of the field, I can use your machines as well. Because so this attack, because it's 0/0, is becomes 1,000 times the number of fusion materials used for its special summon. So it doesn't take long for it to be quite a strong monster. But because all my Gizmeks are machines, it's a bit of a no-brainer to play. Then Thunder Dragon Colossus. This is the one you summon with Corridor. So you do the shuffle back defense, make Corridor, tribute Corridor, make Colossus, ideally in defense. This says your opponent cannot draw cards outside of their draw phase at all. A lot of decks want to be drawing cards, so you stop them from doing that, and then they can't play the game. Oh, is it missing a card? I don't think so. Maybe I took that out. Doesn't matter. It's on the deck, it doesn't matter. So yeah, that's the then. So that's the 5 from the extra deck, and the rest of this. It's pick any monster you want, because the idea is you're only using it for Orochi anyway. Or if your opponent has something that looks through the extra deck, they see that and these, and they don't know why I'm playing, because there are decks that can do that, that's just going to confuse them, because it would do, apart from they probably now know what I've got, but that's not a problem. Also, some of these would work if I was making a side deck, but it doesn't have one yet, so we don't need to worry about that. So that's the deck. Now I'll just show a couple of hands. Some good, some bad. Well, actually, I'll give it a shuffle first, because you'll see this at tournaments anyway. Between rounds, a lot of decks kind of get ordered these days, so you have to shuffle just because of the nature how decks summon themselves out and interact. So it's always worth knowing how to do a shuffle to make sure you're not drawing hands and can't be accused of fixing your deck. Because I have witnessed people get told off for that, even at locals level. But most people, when you explain why, are normally fine with it. It just stops you pulling the same hand, the perfect hand, every single time. So I'll give it a proper shuffle. You are supposed to try and keep this facing the same way in official tournaments. It's because in theory, if I want a particular card to salvage the field spell, if I put it this way, you can, because it's got the gap from where it puts in at the top, in theory I could see that and then control that card. Again, you'll get a minor telling off for it if you're caught by a judge, but at the Hobby League level, people won't even notice. So I'll do a going first and a going second, a couple of both. So just try. So going first hand might. Well, you always have 5 cards when you first open. Good hand I had recently was well, a decent hand, I won't say good, something like that. So I've got a Dimension Shifter, a Grand Mardu, Dark Ruler, Mulcharmy, and an Orochi. This deck's going second, so I'll play this hand as I'm going second. So, opponent, because it's quick effect, I go Shifter before they've even done it. They go draw, standby, I go shift main, I go Shifter, they go well. But I would tag on the Furos, so that will get banished, but because it's a discard effect, not a center graveyard, wording becomes important, it will still go through. So let's say with this hand, they've still summoned once from extra deck. Okay, that's awkward. That's exactly what you don't want to join to, but that happens. Because even though you don't want to activate it on your turn, it's completely into your opponent's. So with this hand, bear in mind I'm still under shift at end of my turn. If they have got any monsters on board, I'd automatically go Dark Ruler. Stops any on-board effects from happening. Banished, because it's an all card. Then, I'd banish 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. To get Orochi out. I can't do damage because of Dark Ruler, but I can still attempt to destroy the monster if it's weaker. And I'd keep Grand Mardu in hand at this point. Oh, I forgot to draw my card. You always draw a card at the start of your turn, I forgot. So I could normal this out, but I'm not going to be able to special summon off it. So I might keep stuff back for now and go, okay, I'll see what my opponent does from here. Now I'm out of Shifter. If they do destroy this, it goes to graveyard. I quick effect, banish 8 more, bring it back. So then, in theory, on my turn, I'm going to have a fairly decent Grand Mardu. So that's I'll do a couple more. I'll do another decent hand. I'll keep the Orochi out actually. I'll keep him out. I'll keep the Grand Mardu out as well. Then I just need the field spell. This would probably be your best, in some ways your best going second. I'll just shuffle it so I get, so it comes to my go, going second, what do I get for my 6? Okay, droplet. So I'd set the droplet, keep them back row, could be spell, could be trap, it could be anything. Because at this point they wouldn't know my hand. I then played Desires. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Draw 2. I've got Raigeki. I've got another Grand Mardu in this case. Okay. Then I would go play the field spell. Effect to excavate. Or get banished face down because there was no Gizmeks. Now this is live. So I'd banish 8. So as you can see already, I've got a lot to summon Orochi. That gets its first counter because that's the first Gizmek. I have more than 6 banished. Normal. This goes to 2. Then I probably do a discard one of the Grand Mardus, and I would add, assuming they, this is where you get the interesting bit. I know which card I wanted, and I was wanting the dragon or the stag. I don't have it. It's in there. So the next one I'd take is that for the burn damage if they summon. This is the risk with this deck. You have a plan in your mind, and then you go, actually, that doesn't work. Well, he would be an option. So yeah, assuming I've done that, go to their turn, comes back to my turn. I draw. I've now got the other field spell. I won't activate it, but I could do but that would reset my counter, so there's no point till that gets wiped off the board. I'd then do that again. That would go to hand, they go to banished. I've not normal summoned this turn. This is where the maths comes into this deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 23 cards. 23 times. You see, this is where the maths comes in. So I'm ballpark 9,200. I know this because I got it to around that the other day. So that's going to be approximately a 9,200 normal monster. I go battle. I could, if I wanted to, really go for it. I could Regeki, wipe their board. We've only got 8,000 life. 9-2 direct. It's just game. Or if they do anything to stop the Raigeki, I've still got punch. Or I could also destroy, banish 3 more, and then summon, and it's even bigger. So that's kind of what this deck's aiming for, is getting rid of as much of the deck as possible. I'll show you a bad hand.
So just before you continue,
yeah.
So back row is for
spells and traps.
Spells and traps.
Yeah.
Front row is for.
Yeah, it'll be own for monsters.
For monsters, okay.
There are ways of putting monsters into your spell and trap zone in some decks. Some decks want that because they can summon and interact with them. Stag itself would put an extra deck monster into the spell and trap zone. The only spell that's not in your back row is your field spell, which goes in front of your extra deck.
So which card can you summon?
What, the stag?
Yes.
So the stag, if he's on the field, and that's a better choice. It's not, but it'll work. That's in there. You've got a monster in the extra monster zone. Special summon. Effect. That's now spell and trap till I destroy one of your monsters, summon it out, destroy.
Okay.
But which is why he's hard to play with at the moment, unless you're against certain decks that actively use the extra monster zone, he is not good in hand. Also, there's ways of dodging around stuff. So a bad hand, maybe my opponents made me go first, because they know I'm playing Gizmek. So they're like, well, we want you to we want you to try and basically not be able to play the game, which can happen. That would be yeah, that's 5. So here I've got the stag, 2 lightning storms, the deluge dragon, and Carnet. This is what we'd call a brick. Can't special summon. They're all 3 monsters above level 4, so all of these would need 2 tributes. Can't special summon because there's no monsters in the extra monster zone. I'm going first, opponent's not summoned. There's no extra deck monsters. Can't special summon. I've gone first. My opponent has not used a monster effect this duel. Cannot summon. Can't use lightning storms. My opponent's got any attack monsters, well, monsters in attack position, or spells and traps. I cannot play. Doesn't happen often you get a completely bricked hand like this, but I have. But this or any of the loads of the board breakers going first, apart from droplets, because it's a quick play, and you're basically hoping they can't make a game on board, because if they do, I'm not drawing the 6, and even then that's a brick, because that still wants a tribute because I don't have anything banished. And yeah, you saw I shuffled that, so that was a complete that was completely lucky. So I'll do a hand. I'll do a shuffle, and if I get you to cut it, because that's when you go into a duel, you shuffle your deck, then your opponent can either shuffle or cut the deck. So it's your choice. I'll let you do whichever one you want. Yeah, and then
put these on top.
You can put those on top. You can cut it more than that if you want. Some people do with 2 or 3. It just means it's the polite thing to do. If your opponent refuses, that's on them, but don't make that choice for them. It just means I've not stacked the deck and put what I want on top. So let's open. Furlos, Hopping Hare, a Raigeki, the Ferocious Fang Fortress, and another Hopping Hare. Okay. Let's say I was going second because this is what this deck wants to do. I'm Olchami. Let's say they make 2 extra deck monsters. 1, 2, and then they pass. 6 plus 2 would be 9. I'm well within. I don't have to shuffle anything back. Then I go. I would probably open up Raigeki because I can try and break their board. Then I'm not going to get him out this turn. So the way I might even Feather Duster, but with the monsters, depends what back row is. I would. There's 2 ways of playing this. First, a normal Hopping Hare of Yugioh. Because he lets me special summon, I now on Gizmek, I've got an option of 3. If I do that, I'm linking off. If I do that, I'm tribute. I can't use his effect to tribute. Both my Hopping Hares are here. So that is just ruled out of the question. You just wouldn't touch that one until next turn. At this point, do I want that one or that one? I think personally I'd pick this one. He sums out defense because of that effect. 2,150, that's a decent defense. Then I'd go effect. I've got 1 on the field, so I would discard the other one because it's got graveyard effects. I would then search out, personally I'd search out Orochi, because he discards to add to hand, hoping I've not had an interaction to stop that. Assuming I haven't, I can now start banishing. I banish, special that out. Now, I could leave that with that in hand, or I might go, I won't get the destruction, or I might go, I'm going to link these 2 off into IP. So on my opponent's turn, I special this back, I then can quick effect into SP Little Knight, and then bring him back on my turn. And then hope that's destroyed, so I shuffle some of those back. Rochi is really good link material, because he just brings himself back once per turn. And because then I'm also getting a banish. If I banish the right piece, you stop their play. That's personally what I do. What do I banish? Looking face down banish is always a bit of a grey area, but because my deck lets me look, eventually I'd be able to look. So 2 of the hog, 1 of the intellect, forbidden droplet, monster reborn, Uka, no to removal, dark ruler no more, charming fool us. If I was to shuffle back, if it got to that point and he was destroyed, I'd shuffle back the Furos. No, I wouldn't actually. That'd be silly. The Dark Ruler, the Monster Reborn, because it is cards, not monsters. The Droplet. I'd go the limiter removal, and I'd probably shuffle one of these back over the Uka, because I've lost 2 and now I've got 1. So I've lost 2/3 of that one already. Whereas I've still got 1 of these, and chances of me getting an Earth on my opponent's side to get the other one out. So, do you want to go? So, you've got a map with positionings. So for you, I'll give a quick shuffle on the card. Your extra deck, it's not easily visible with the picture, but that white one,
right,
that's your extra deck. So your field spell, if you get it, goes there. This deck then goes in the opposite one to that on the far end. So draw 5. Yeah. Yeah. So if you lay them face up, you normally wouldn't, but okay. So we're assuming you're going second because that's what the deck wants to do. What would be your first obvious play?
that's a good question.
Because there's 2 plays you could do. If I narrow it down to you, you could either be one of these 2 would probably be your first play. Which one's most likely? You can pick them up and read them.
That's good.
So, because you normally have them in your hand.
Yes.
So if you can't see on the screen, there's the hog, the toad, the intellect, Urka, the fox, the ferocious fanged fortress, and the Fururos.
Sorry, I'm struggling to read this. Didn't bring my glasses.
So this one,
yeah,
you can discard
yeah,
as a quick effect. You don't control anything because it's not your turn. You haven't had to go yet. If they summon from deck or extra deck, you draw a card. And there are shuffle back effects, but we don't worry about that.
Right, so that'll be a good one to play.
The fox, if they summon out directly from deck, he summons out and then does burn damage up for all summons after that of 300, but you can also summon out a monster from deck.
So, because this is the second one, and
yeah,
probably go for this
yes.
one?
Then let's assume they've done 2 summons from extra deck.
Right.
You'd draw 2.
Oops, that's 1 and 2.
Right, so we've got a Raigeki and Harpy Sether Duster. Okay. They passed on 2. You've got less than 8 cards in hand. You don't need to shuffle any back for hand size. It's now your turn. So you are still within hand limit. Hand limit's like 7. So you don't have to, but that only comes into effect at the end of your turn. So it goes to your, now it's your turn, draw one, because you draw one at the start of your turn.
Right.
And you declare, draw, stand by, main.
Okay.
Just in case they've got effects in any of those, it gives them their response time.
Right.
Now you have this board, this hand. They've got stuff on. They've got two monsters on board. You've got those. What would, and then maybe they've got some back row. What would you? Now, it's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but what might you want to do first?
I guess if they've got monsters out,
Yeah,
use that one.
yeah, that would be a good start.
If they've got spells and traps,
Yeah,
you want to use that one.
yeah. So try and break their board before you do anything. Yeah, that's what this deck wants to do. That now you can't summon those two out. Yeah,
Because they're too high.
They're
Because
too
that's
high.
the 6
and that's
that's
like
the
a 7. Yeah.
Right.
But you've got a 1, a 3, and a 4. Bear in mind that one special summons itself. You could get all 3 out, actually.
How would you do that?
So, play hare in one of these. You play the hare in one of these 5 slots, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
You then go hare effect. He's special. In fact, you could get any of those out. Hare says you can special summon a machine with basically a Gizmek in defense position when he summons. So then you can pick any of them because none of them have. He doesn't have any limits on them that say they can't be.
So then would you go for the one with the highest defense?
Yeah, you might do. You could pick either of those because then that would mean they get burn damage when they start summoning. Then you can get a third one out. Well, you can get 4 out. Effect. He has been special summoned.
Right.
You can now summon any Gizmek. Let me just double check the reading. Yeah, so you target one of your opponent's attributes, and then you can summon one out from deck in defense. So let's say you've got a light and a dark. So you'd go effect, and then which one would you want to do? That's your choice. Light, you can say light or dark. If they.
So which of these are light and dark?
No. So imagine your opponent's got light and dark.
Right, okay.
You can pick one, and then you summon one with that attribute from deck. So it doesn't matter.
Let's say light.
Alright, light. So you'd go through, and your light monster is that. Yeah, there's no other light monsters. So you'd get that one.
So how do I know it's a light monster?
Its attributes in the top next to its name.
Okay.
They've got symbols, but they also have light, earth, dark, wind, whatever written with them. Now you can. I wouldn't use his effect from field because you're not going to get much more. You'd have to tribute that, so then you'd only get one of those on the field because you've got one in hand. But you can special one more out without doing anything else.
How would I do that?
Read this one's effect, Hog.
Because
he specials out if you control basically another Gizmek.
Right, so because there's a...
Because you control Gizmeks, this is what your deck does. He specials out.
Right, so he comes out.
Yeah. Now, you have to think here. There's no right or wrong answer. You've got a 1850 and a 50 monster. in attack, and then you've got high defense and low defense. What could you do?
So is that the difference? These are defence if they're that way,
Yeah.
and their attack if
Yeah.
they're that way.
Yeah. So
right.
in sideways defense, it uses the defense stat. Attack, it uses the attack stat.
Right. So I guess you check to see what score their attacks.
Yeah. But what could you do with some of
defensive.
these? What have you not gotten into yet that you could now? You've used your deck. What else do you have?
Oh, what the?
Yeah, the extra deck.
The extra deck.
So, if you turn it over, because I've got them on the bottom, you could make that with any 2 monsters. So 3 monsters I'd be looking at doing that, because it's 50.
Yes.
And then either one of those two. These all have graveyard effects, so it doesn't matter. But I would use that one.
Because it's a low score.
Yeah.
Right. So
that would go to graveyard.
Where's our graveyard?
There.
Left. That goes to graveyard.
And one of those two. It really doesn't matter.
Like this one.
Yeah. So then you can put it in either one of those zones because it's a link monster.
Right.
No, one of these two
Also
middle
one of
ones.
those two.
Yeah.
Sorry, link monsters.
Right. When they're first summoned, have to go there. They're then free to go in any once they've been summoned. Once they summon back. So then do that. Then you're passing. Realistically, with this board, you're passing. They then they're going to be taking 300 burn damage, if anything. But as soon as they use an effect, you chain IP.
What does that mean?
So they go monster effect. So you have chains where you sort out a list of effects and then you work it backwards. So say they go, I don't know, effect to summon from deck. You might go chain IP. So then you'd go IP and that because you want to keep on board for the, and then you'd get out SP Little Knight. So go back to your extra deck.
Right.
You go SP. It doesn't matter which zone you put in, it has to go in one of those. And then you go on summon effect. This is all part of your chain, part of the chain and your priority. And then you'd probably banish the one. Even if it still gets its effect off, you'd banish it because then they've got less things on board.
Right, so you'd banish.
So you just banish one of your opponent's monsters.
One of your opponents, sorry.
If they then use an effect, you can chain this and your opponent monster to take them both off to end phase. But otherwise, you are sitting on SP and a Gizmek pass, which is not too bad as a deck. Do you want to do another one?
Yep.
So if we get these back, then we shuffle. But so you kind of seeing how these bounce off each other very nicely, which is why I wanted to show you this deck first, because this is what we call an archetypal deck. Apart from one or two of the monsters, everything sits within the Gizmek archetype, which means your plays are slightly freer than some other decks, as you'll find out in a minute. And this is where merging decks with the right synergy work. So I've shuffled, your deck's been shuffled and cut.
Right.
So
those there.
Yeah. Draw 5. So you've got the Fanged Fortress.
Fanged Fortress.
You've got a Raigeki. You've got Carnot, the Eternal Machine. You've got another Fanged Fortress. And then you've got a Grand Marju. Perfect. In the sense that this is not as good a hand as it could be, which is good. Again, we're going to assume we're going second, so you draw your 6 cards. You've not got any quick effects, which is why I know you can do that. You've got the field spell. Good. So now, you've done standby, draw, standby, you're now in main phase. What would you do first?
Spell card?
Yeah, you could do that. So play it, and then you can activate it. So you excavate the top 3, so fill top 3 up here. From deck.
Alright, so just 1, 2, 3?
Yep.
1, 2, 3.
And then then put them all out. These all get banished face down because none of them are Gizmek cards.
Right, okay.
But you've now refilled them. You're definitely on board breakers. But Desires, Dark Ruler no more. If they don't know what you're playing against, limited removal's going to throw them because there's not many machine decks in play at the moment. Now you've got 2 Fortress, 1 Carnot, a Grand Marju, and a Raigeki. What would you probably do next?
Well, that will make...
Yeah. So yeah, that would go to graveyard.
Graveyard.
You've gone second. Your opponent has probably used a monster effect this duel.
So you need to choose one with a fairly good defence.
Right. There's no point summoning him out because he is only going to be he's going to have next to nothing.
Yes.
Those 2 can't be normal because you've not got 6 banished.
That one.
He will special out because your opponent has used a monster effect this duel. Really weird wording. And he's a 3,000 to 2,500. 3,000 decent attack. Blue Eyes White Dragon is a 3,000 to put into context. They now use an effect. If they use a monster effect, you go chain. This becomes 4,000.
Right.
Your field spell doesn't get activated. Now, you could. There are 2 options. You can either pass on that, or you could tribute summon for one of the Ferocious Fortress. The downside would be that's now 4,000, and they're 2,150. So you might not, depending on the play. But that board, ironically, from a bad hand, is not a bad. It's a good board for a bad hand. Let's put it that way. You wouldn't want to play with that necessarily, but at the same time,
Not disastrous.
it's not disastrous because you never summon your Grand Marju till you're happy it's doing a decent amount that turn. So, do you want to do another one, or do you want to do another hand, or?
Let's do one more.
Yeah. So, but you say it's not quite as you see now you get the good hands, you get the bad hands, but that's where deck building comes into it.
I'll let you shuffle your best shuffling.
You'll have to learn if you're doing LGD. You won't get away with like sort of whoever's had children go, can you shuffle for me? You don't think you'll get away with that one. But also, so you can draw, but this shows you. Ooh. 2 limited removals, Monster Reborn, Protoss, and Forbidden Droplet. Ouch. You're definitely going second. So draw your 6. Okay, we have plays. We have plays. So,
just to check, was it bricking before that?
technically a brick. You would have set Forbidden Droplet, maybe summoned a your yeah, you would have set the Droplet Pass, and then you still probably would have taken a. You wouldn't die because everything gets halved. That's already on the board, but you'd have issues playing because Protoss needs you to banish 3 different attributes from graveyard. Yeah, that's what we'd call a. Oh dear, I'd probably game that next game scoop hand, in all honesty, which is perfectly legitimate to do. Sometimes you'll draw a hand and go, there's no point playing.
Right.
It's a waste of everybody's time. So you've gone second. Alright, you don't have a graveyard, but they will have monsters in graveyard. Just so, what would you do first? That's quite funny. I'll explain why that's funny in a minute.
Well, I'm guessing for your reaction, probably this one.
Yeah, so you banish 8 up top.
1, 2, 3, 7, 8.
Face down there. We don't. I'll have a quick look, 'cause I'm intrigued. So then, yep, he's summoned out.
Right.
Okay, that is not the. That's a, yeah, interesting to banish. What? Well, I suggested one thing you would have done if you were going first. There's a card you'd obviously.
That one?
Right, yeah, you could do that. So you'd Monster Reborn, target an opponent's monster in graveyard, they'd have a monster. So we'll just use that token, you've summoned something from your opponent that goes to graveyard. Then you'd probably set that.
Set this one?
Yeah, because you can. So set goes face down in the spell and trap zone.
Okay.
Then you can actually declare battle with this and play 2 more cards in the battle phase.
Oh, okay.
Well, I say 2 more cards. 1 more card technically. You've got 2 quick play spells.
Right.
So these 2. They're quick play, but they're not once per turn. So you could go battle, limiter removal, limiter removal.
Alright.
This doubles. So it doubles its attack because of limiter removal. It then doubles the doubled attack. And if you have the third, so let me just do the maths, because actually maths becomes critical at this point. Times 2 again. That's 9,800. And let's say that's 1,000 and something because of the board. You then battle, and assuming they're not dead, because realistically they probably are just of that, but if they're not, end phase, so they'd go to graveyard, then you declare end phase, that gets destroyed because of limiter removal. But you've still got one of their monsters, but realistically you've made that high enough, you've probably done quite a lot of damage anyway, and if not, you just flip that, discard Protoss and that, and you're negating them. So, what did you think about Gizmek as a deck?
Yeah, I think it's just working out what each card does
Yes.
and when to use it. I think
that's with any card and with any, anyone learning a new deck, it doesn't matter how good you are, when you're learning a new deck, it's constantly replaying it. But as a concept,
as a concept, yeah, it
so
seems reasonable to play.
There we go. So there is that video. We'll see you for the next one.